Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Many Faces of Cancer podcast. I'm your host, Melissa Grosboll, and I have with me today Mary Grace. And this is a little bit of a different podcast. Mary is a caregiver. She is not a cancer patient or survivor. And we're going to have a great conversation today. So Mary lives in Fort Lauderdale. She is a native Floridian. She is the second youngest of 8 children. And she says that her real job is a property manager and her fun job is working for the Florida Panthers hockey team. So welcome, Mary, to the show. It's great to have you.
Hello.
And we were talking before we hit record, and I had said, if you guys don't know, I'm an Avs fan because I live in Colorado, but my husband and I were watching a Florida Panthers game one night, and we just thought it was the coolest thing that the fans throw plastic rats on the ice whenever the Panthers score. And I just thought that was the coolest thing ever. I had never seen that before.
When the Panthers win, they
now
throw
I'm
the
kind
rats
of a little bit of a Panthers fan myself because of that.
Have to clean the ice every time. But it happened when they were at the Miami Arena. There was a rat in the locker room. One of the players with the stick whacked it against the wall. They won, and ever since then, it became the Panthers tradition that you throw the rats on the ice after they win. And they sell them at the arena, and they recycle them at the end of the game. And the funds from the sale of them goes to the Panthers Foundation, which is a charitable organization run by the Florida Panthers. And they do like families in need, sick children. The players go to the hospital. So they do toy drives. It's a great organization of the Florida Panthers. And the guests, some of the guests that don't understand about the rat, I work in the suite department. We have food, and they come and, they're toy rats, but people still look at them like, oh my God, is that a real rat on the shelf over there? And you have to be like, no, it's plastic. You can throw it at the end of the game if you'd like.
So, and as of this recording, the Panthers are in the
Eastern Conference 2-2. We're tied with the Rangers. So we play tonight, 8:00, and Game 6 is Saturday, and Game 7 is Monday, I think. I'm not sure.
Okay. And then if they win, they go on to the finals, right?
Stanley Cup, yeah. And right now it's, I think, the Dallas Stars, and I forget who they're playing. They're tied. That series is tied 2-2 as well.
Yeah, I think they're playing the Oilers, the Edmonton
Oilers.
The
Oilers, and it's tied 2-2,
yeah. So, I mean, the Avs got taken out.
Yeah,
so
eliminated. So
I haven't paid as much attention since then, but. All right, well, let's get into this because, like I said, you're kind of the first caregiver that we've had on the show, and I wanted to have you on because I think that caregivers are very unappreciated. It's really all about the patient. It's all about what they're going through, and obviously it's very important because they're going through it. But I also think that caregivers need the recognition as well because of everything they do, and they can tend to kind of lose themselves in taking care of someone else. So I really wanted to highlight kind of what you have gone through, and you've actually taken care of several people. So can we kind of start a little bit with your husband, because he was the first person that you really were kind of the primary caregiver for. So can you tell us a little bit about his journey?
My husband had a disease called hemochromatosis, which is a degenerative disease of the liver, and ended up having to have a liver transplant. So my original caregiving started then as my husband, who was on anti-rejection meds and trying to get all those meds working with your body. Certain meds work great for some people and they didn't work for others. So he had a rough go of it post-transplant. But luckily he came through he survived for 2 years after his transplant. Unfortunately, he died of a heart attack in his sleep. But that started my whole caregiving process, but I was totally new, didn't know really what I was doing, just had to kind of learn on the fly, okay, we're having nurses come, or okay, you're going to have to, in the middle of the night, he had a food, an NG tube in his nose to feed him, and the alarm was going off. Well, I couldn't get a home health care nurse there at the middle of the night, so I had to do it myself. And I just learned I learned on the fly, but I did it. And then at the same time, my brother was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer. He was single, he didn't have anybody. So I became his primary caregiver. He made me, his power of attorney, healthcare surrogate, like everything. So I was it for my brother. And he was the hardest because, like I said, he didn't have anybody. And I had never dealt with all the things that you have to do with the cancer patient, as far as like, again, I'm learning on the fly, having to, like, he had a patch for his pain meds, and I didn't know that if I didn't change it every 48 hours or whatever it was, let's say, he would start going through detox or withdrawals. So one day he was just extremely sick and I didn't really know what was wrong. And I said, I have to take you to the emergency room. I don't know what's wrong. Like, I can't, some days he would say, I don't feel good. And I would check his sugar and his sugar would be low. And I'm like, well, I'm going to give you some orange juice. We'll see how you feel. And he would feel better. So this, that day, I couldn't make him, I couldn't figure it out. So we ended up calling the doctor. Thankfully, I called the doctor first, and he's like, can I ask you a question? When was the last time you changed his pain patch? And I go, yesterday, or whatever I said. And he goes, well, you need to change it every 48 hours at the time. Like, if you gave it to him at 2 o'clock, you need to do it 2 days at 2 o'clock. Write it in black Sharpie marker on the patch, change it right now. And I did what the doctor said. Thankfully, 15 minutes, he felt so much better. He's like, what did you do? I feel fine. What, like I was this miracle worker. But then I was so embarrassed because I was like, oh my God, how could I be so dumb and not know this? But I didn't know it because I'm not a nurse. I was just a caregiver. So I've learned through doing that, I'd have to give myself credit because I didn't do it. I was doing it because I didn't know any better. And another thing I had to give myself was leniency. Like, at one point, my brother just said to me, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, he had been struggling for 2 years. He fought a hard fight. And he's like, I don't want to go to the doctor today. And I'm like, okay, that's your choice. You're the one fighting. I'm not. So I won't take you. I called the doctor. I said, he doesn't want to come. He goes, that's fine. He goes, but we need to make sure that if he wants to stop, and that's fine, we need to make sure that you get, hospice lined up and get everything done while he's still in clear frame of mind. Well, at that point, I was like, what are you talking about? Like, he just doesn't want to come to the doctor today. But the doctor knew what was going to happen if he didn't come to the doctor and keep doing the chemo. I was like, well, he'll be fine. He's just not going to come to the doctor today. Again, yeah, I'd have to give myself, like, looking back, when the doctor called me without my brother being there, he's like, look, this is what's going to happen. And then one of the last things, I was moving my daughter into college, and my dad had called, and he's like, on your way home, you really need to stop by and see your brother. We've been here all weekend while you've been gone, but you really need to come see him. And I said, Dad, I can't. I'm too tired. I'm driving. I've been moving boxes. I just can't. So I hung up with my dad, and I'm like, driving in the car by myself, and I'm like, oh, what if something happens? I won't forgive myself. Like, I really need to go, but I can't. I'm too tired. What good am I going to be? I can't go. So, and I didn't go. My brother was alive the next day, and I got to see him. And I had said goodbye to him before I left, like, just in case in my heart I knew if something happened, I got to say goodbye. But you have to, as a caregiver, I had to learn to be. I still had to be me. I still had to do on my life things. I had kids. I had a house. I had, sometimes I would take my brother, give him a shower, get him all dressed, get him in his chair, and I'd say, okay, listen, I'm going to run to Publix. I'm going to be gone for an hour and a half. If you need me, here's your cell phone, my cell phone, your phone's right here. Call me. But I have to go to the store. But I really didn't need anything at Publix. I just needed to go out of the house and do something other than sit there and watch. He loved America's Pickers. I mean, we watched that show for hours. I mean, I don't know how many things you can find in somebody's barn, in somebody's, garage, but we watched it. But yeah, I had to, that's one of the hardest things, is I had to learn to give myself grace for making mistakes, and knowing that I didn't do it, on purpose, take the time I needed, and also still be me. I had to learn, and it was hard. and to say goodbye. Like I had to learn that no matter what, I couldn't do anymore. He fought his fight and I fought his fight with him. And I finally had to learn when he said, I'm not going to do this anymore. You have to learn to say goodbye and, have those really hard conversations and then know that, what, God put me here for a reason. And this is good. This is a good thing. And you have to look at it from you can't look at it from a negative standpoint, even though it's very negative and hard. You have to look at it from the positive, that you were there and you were able to be 100% there.
So you mentioned several times I had to learn how to do this and I had to learn how to do this. How did you learn this? How did you figure out, hey, I can't keep doing it this way? Like, were there ahas or big turning points or something that made you look at it and say, hey, I need to be doing something different?
It was a lot of different things, cause and effect. Like for example, the pain medicine. I had to learn to write on the patch with a marker that these days, and like when giving them a shower, or like I had to learn from watching them that it worked or it didn't work. Like we're gonna eat and then we're gonna take a shower, or it would be like, no, that's not gonna work. We need to take a shower and then eat, because if you take a shower, you relax and then you eat and then you can go to bed. So you had to kind of learn from watching my brother and my husband. I had to learn from watching them and what they, and it was like almost like being a child. I hate to say, I was like, if you eat your dinner, then I'll give you some ice cream, but you have to eat your dinner. You can't have ice cream, or you have to take a shower because we have to go to the doctor, but you can watch TV, but we have to take a shower first, then you can watch TV. So I had to kind of like play with them, play a game, I guess, and also just learning from watching. I would watch the home healthcare nurses when they came,
Okay.
trying to watch what they did, how they handled them. Because, when you get home from the hospital, you always have, okay, you have 2 weeks of nurses every day, and then it's a week, and then there are 2 days a week, and then they don't come anymore. But I always try to learn by watching them. What did they use? How did they do that? How did they put him in the bed? How did they give him a shower? Um, I kept a lot of notes. I mean, I felt like I was back in grade school with my spiral notepads and post-it notes, and I took a lot of notes on what they liked, what worked, how to crush pills and put it in applesauce. If they wanted to fight you about taking medicine, by watching them, okay, we'll crush it and put it in applesauce or pudding, and tell them you're giving them chocolate pudding. And again, my brother was like, I get pudding? Yeah, here, have some pudding. Oh, this is great. And I'm like, okay, now you just took all your pain meds and I'm good because you're not going to fight me about not wanting to take your medicine.
So it is a lot like being a child or
yes,
taking care of a child.
yes, it's a lot like a role, a lot like a role reversal. And I really have to say, you have to watch what they want, what he wanted, what my husband wanted, what my brother wanted. I had to watch and also their cues, because like when somebody's very anxious and they're like asleep, let's say, or they're in pain, they're going to grip the sheet, they're going to moan, they're going to and you can try to rub their arm and see maybe they're just a little uncomfortable or whatever. But if it continues, that they're uncomfortable. So you have to watch their verbal cues and their visual cues. And that's basically, again, learning from watching and watching the nurses and not being afraid. That was another thing the nurses told me. You can't hurt them. Almost like bringing your newborn baby home from the hospital and you're like, oh my God, how do I change a diaper? Well, you're not going to hurt them. You're doing it to help them. So they might not like it and you might do it wrong. You might put the diaper on backward. It might rip. I mean, but you're doing it. Everything you're doing to help the person. So that's very important. I had to learn for myself as well. So.
And then how did you learn really to take that time for yourself? Because I've heard of people who get into caregiver mode to the detriment of themselves, and then they end up getting sick because they didn't figure out or learn how to take care of their own needs as well, because it was all about the patient.
Two of my sister-in-laws are RNs. they don't live in the state. They live here, but they live far. They weren't close to where they could come help us right away. And my one sister is a hospice nurse, and my other sister is a hemophiliac nurse. That was their specialties. And they are the one that told me, listen, caregiver fatigue is a real big thing. Mm-hmm. And by you not sleeping, you're not helping them. By you not eating, you're not helping them. And you need to take the time. If you know they are, again, I'm gonna compare this to a baby. If you know that baby is fed, has a dry diaper, and they're in their crib or whatever, and they're on their playpen, they're playing, you can go take a shower because nothing's really going to happen in that 15 minutes or whatever. Or we used to put the baby in the shower in the bathroom with you, and you keep popping out the shower curtain. It's kind of the same thing. I would take a shower, and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna take 15. I gotta take a shower. You took your shower, now I need mine. 15 minutes. And it was really the advice of my sister-in-laws that helped me realize that I needed to do that. And also, my brother would love to go sit outside. And I realized, wow, the sun and just the change of scenery is really important for him. So then I'm like, well, maybe I need to start doing the same thing. Like, even though I've already taken him for a walk, and maybe because he would tell me I need to take a nap. I'm really, really tired. Like, I want to take a nap. Okay, no problem. So he would take a nap, and that's when I'd be like, okay, I'm going to go sit outside on the back swing, or I'm going to run to Publix. You're going to take a nap. Here's your phone. Your phone, you can call me. And, my number was he had to just push the one button and it would dial me. It was like speed dial. Like, it was a no-brainer kind of a thought thing for him to call me. And he really never abused it. He only called me very rarely if I'd left and be like, don't forget, I need popsicles. Don't forget, my brother loved cheese. I don't know what it was about cheese and chemo and lollipops. He loved Dum Dum lollipops. So, he would be like, do we have Dum Dums? Yes, we have Dum Dum lollipops. I mean, I buy him at Costco. I think he had 500 lollipops in his house. But basically I had to learn from watching or their cues and people telling me. And then I don't really remember, this was 10 years ago. I don't really remember ever getting to that point where I was so fatigued that I was like, oh, I overdid it, or I pushed the limit. And also I have to say too, is be prepared. Like, if we would go, take him to the doctor for a procedure, they could tell you the procedure was going to happen at 8 and it might not happen till 12. And then he would be tired. So I almost felt like I was a mother, and I'd have to have a diaper bag per se. So I'd bring a sweatshirt, I'd bring a change of clothes, I'd bring a peanut butter sandwich, I'd bring water bottles, even though they give you stuff in the hospital, sometimes you just want something else. And the person. So I knew my brother would want a Dum Dum, or he would want a pudding. So I tried to be prepared, keep one step ahead, basically. But as far as the caregiver fatigue, I luckily, because I think I had my sisters told me ahead of the problem, I really never got to that.
And what kinds of things did you do to take care of yourself? You talked about getting outside and going for a walk, and taking off and going to Publix, and anything else?
Making phone calls if I had to take a work phone call. Like, I am a property manager, so if I had a tenant call, I would say 1 minute I have to make this phone call. I would have to take the phone call, make a referral, call the maintenance company. So I did have to try to keep my own job. I did keep my own job, kept my job. I didn't lose my job, but you have to try to make a schedule as much as you can for what you need that day. Like, if I had getting my hair cut, if I had a doctor's appointment, I wouldn't cancel my own doctor's appointment. I'd say, look, I have a doctor's appointment tomorrow, so I'm going to be, instead of coming over at 9, I'm not going to be here till 10:30. But I'm putting, a yogurt next to your bed in case you get hungry before I get here at 10:30. My brother was self-sufficient in the beginning, which helped me learn, because like I said, he struggled with cancer, with the chemo and all that for 2 years. So in the beginning, it wasn't like I was thrown in to a total person that needed me 100%. I started out gradually, and then I was like, okay, I made you dinner. Because my brother tried to work. He's a mechanic. He tried to go to work. He didn't want to let cancer beat him. He really fought hard. So I was lucky in that aspect that I learned gradually, that I wasn't thrown in hook, line, and sinker at one point. And I think that was a big help. knowing what I needed and what I liked. And I mean, I drink Diet Coke, I drink iced tea like it's, and I'd be like, I gotta go get a tea, and I just would, even though I could make tea at his house. It's like I gotta go get tea. I needed a nice tea, and that's you. Just like how I had to watch him as a patient, I had to watch myself and be like, okay, your hair is looking a little ratty, and you need to make sure you keep your hair appointment. Or so that's how I did it.
Did you have anybody that you could, like any other siblings or anything that you could call and be like, "Hey, I have got to do this today. Can you come and sit with him or be with him?"
Yes, me and my sister, who's right now battling brain cancer herself. At the time, we were his tag team. If not, both of us would go to places. If I was one of his primary caregivers, I mean, healthcare surrogates, and so was she. So either one of us could go pick up meds for him. He would call either of us. One night after a procedure, they told us not to let him go home by himself. We had to watch him. So we were like, do you want to come to my house? Or her name's Julie, my sister. Do you want to go to Julie's house? Like, he's like, I'll go to Julie's house. So, okay. So it's like, so and my parents were both still alive at the time, which that was really hard watching. A mother should never lose her children. That was extremely hard on me to watch. But, I had my parents as well. So even though I was the one that was like I did have other people I could say, hey, like when I moved my daughter to college, I'm like, I got to be gone for 2 days. So I did have help,
Okay,
luckily.
good. And then did you ever feel like guilty for not
I
being
lost you.
there?
Sorry, I didn't hear the
And
question.
if you had something that you had to do yourself, and how did you deal with the possibility of guilt?
Can you repeat? We broke up. I did not hear your question.
Sorry. Did you ever feel guilty about not being there? And, if you had something else to do, and if so, how did you kind of deal with any guilty feelings?
I did. I did. I did feel guilt when I wouldn't do things, but I was raised Catholic. I am Catholic, and I would always just say to God, okay, you're only giving me as much as I can handle. So you're giving me more than I can handle today. So I'm going to handle me, and I'm just going to throw it up in your hands. I did rely on faith a lot. And, just knowing that I, I couldn't, I don't know how to word this. I couldn't, um, it wasn't my fault that I had to do things. I had to keep going, and it was part of living. And I would be very explanatory to him, like, look, hey, tomorrow. And he'd be like, no problem. My nickname was Weasel. I don't know why he gave me that nickname as Weasel, but that's my nickname. So he would go, okay, Weasel. And that was it. Like, he wasn't really upset about it. I was more upset than he was that I wasn't going to be able to be there. And I think that also helped me learn or show me that, okay, he's okay and I'm okay and we're going to be okay. Like, it's just another day. So
Okay. And so, and being a caregiver yourself, what did you need from other people to help support you going through, taking care of somebody else? Did you need other
I
people in your
loved if
life
I'd get the
to
phone call
help
that
you to
I'd be like,
support you,
hey,
and
you
kind
want
of
to meet for lunch
how,
tomorrow? Yeah,
so you could
sure.
get more of your
Or,
needs met?
hey, I'm making banana bread and I'm going to drop you off a loaf at your house. Or, even just seeing people at church and being like, I'm praying for you. Or a card. Like, I used to send I'm a big card person, and I still am a big card person. But I used to love when I would get a card in the mail and someone be like, you got this. Or if anybody can do this, you can do this. And it's just the littlest things. A text like, hey, thinking about you, love you today. Call me if you need me. And even though I knew I didn't have to respond to the person that sent me the text because they were sending it legitimately from their heart and I might have been busy that day or not, just the simplest things really mean a lot to somebody. So cards, little baked goods, going out to lunch, that was a really big thing that I think that people can do to help a caregiver and not really think too much about it.
Okay. Now, did you ever have to actually ask for those things, or were people pretty good about, reaching out to you on their own?
No, I don't remember really ever having to reach out and ask people for that.
Okay.
I don't remember that part though.
Okay. So you had a really good support team around you as well, who made sure that you were okay.
Correct. Correct.
Good.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I know
Hmm.
not everybody has that, so that's really awesome that you
That
did.
is true. That is
Yeah.
true. And
Okay.
I always say I don't know how people do you. I don't. I think the saying is do you, but I don't know how people do things that don't have family or friends, even friends. Because I've had friends that I've had since kindergarten that I consider just as family. I don't even realize they're friends. So people that don't necessarily have a big family can have a great friendship support system as well.
Right. Well, and they say friends are the family that you choose.
Yeah, that's true. That is true. That's
And
been very
sometimes
true.
friends are even better than family because you get
Correct.
to choose them.
Yes. Yes. And you can say things without causing a family feud
Right.
sometimes.
Um, so what advice would you give to uh, patients or even friends to be or do for their caregivers to help support them?
Again, we broke up patients and friends to help support them. Is that what you asked me?
Yeah. So, what advice would you give to a patient who has a caregiver and how the patient can help support them as well as the caregiver supporting the patient?
Communication. Communication is a big thing because the patient can tell you what they need. You can tell the patient what you need. You can tell friends what you need. Communication is the key because certain things that you might like, I won't, the patient might like, friends. And if you, it doesn't hurt to ask. It doesn't, it doesn't hurt to listen. It doesn't hurt to reach out and someone say, I need you. I need help. You have to communicate. And that is one of the biggest things I think is talking amongst everybody that's involved in the situation.
It's amazing how, we talk all day long, every day, but many times we still don't communicate.
Well, and I think a lot of it is you don't want to lose, like my brother's for say, he was a man and I'm a woman. So it was his pride. Like in the beginning, he'd be like, you can't see me in the shower. And I'm like, well, I don't want to see you in the shower, but I also don't want you to fall in the shower. So you're going to shower and you're going to take a shower and then not. So I think that's another thing is the pride. And you can't take away somebody's, you got to give them the privacy they need, but all alone. And oh my God, not alone. Be like, I'm not looking, but I'm helping. Or that's the hard thing too, is they don't want to give up their pride. They don't want to give up their independence, but they do need your help, and they don't want to ask sometimes, and you see it that they need the help, or you see that he's getting wobbly and like, hey, why don't I get you one of those electric chairs? You get up so much easier. I don't need that. That's for old people. And I'm like, okay. And then I'm like, you sure you don't want to try it? Like, look, Lazy Boy has 30-day trial. Just so it's like you don't want to hurt their pride. You got to communicate. They have to, say no. Then you have to say, let's try. You but that's the biggest thing. People don't want to ask for help, and especially a patient. And like I said, my brother was younger. When he passed, he was only 48 years old, so he was not elderly where he wouldn't communicate. I think that's a big thing
Right.
too.
Okay. Um, awesome. So, I'm trying to think if there's anything else. So, the last thing that I always ask my guests, and it's kind of more from the patient standpoint, but as a caregiver, how I guess how is your life different now? And like I always ask for like a silver lining or a blessing that has come through going through this experience, to kind of set you up for the rest of your life. We try and, end everything with like a story of hope and inspiration. So like, how is your life different now than it was before you kind of went through these experiences?
I've learned a lot about myself. I've learned I'm a lot stronger than I ever gave myself credit to for. I've learned that I have a very big heart, and it was almost like they were the stepping stones to help me help people. And I notice people like at the grocery store, if they're struggling or trying to reach something, it's like it's taught me more than I could ever learn in a book or in a classroom. And it also taught me that you don't realize how many friends you really have until you go through something like that, and you do have people that reach out, like I said, with a card, a note, something at the door, and you're like, wow, like I didn't even know they knew that I was having a bad day today. um, and I don't regret anything I ever did. I don't regret not being able to go to concerts or the beach, or because I think that was the choice that God gave me, or the path. And I know that someday, I'll be repaid 10 times over. I took care of both of my parents after my brother passed. I mean, due to old age. I mean, my dad died at 96 and my mother was 94. And learning to be myself again was kind of weird. Like, I'd wake up in the middle of the night and I'm like, oh my God, I didn't go to the grocery. Mom doesn't have any food. What am I doing? And I'd get up and I'd go, okay, wait a minute. Mom is in heaven. Mom has all the food she wants. You don't need to go to the grocery for her anymore. But I've learned that, you know, it's all a learning experience. It's hard when you go through it, but the knowledge, the things that you can tell somebody else, and they're like, wow, like I never thought of it that way, because you've already been through the hurdle and they're starting their hurdle. So it's just the insight that you can go through, and knowing that I gave it everything I could, and I don't regret a day. I don't regret anything I ever did. I mean, yeah, I regret sometimes screwing up his meds, but that was an accident. But I don't regret anything I ever did. And I know that,
Well,
you know.
I mean, nobody's perfect, and we
Oh
don't
no.
learn
Mm-mm.
when we do everything right.
Oh yeah. And you learn. And it's amazing because you will see, like my brother's, one of the big things my brother had a hard time with was losing all of his hair.
Mm.
And he really had a hard time with that. So I see people now that they'll be like, I don't want to shave my head, I just tell him what he told me. Now the doctor told me to tell him, it's easier for you to go through the shock of shaving your head one time than it is for you to take showers and have clumps of hair falling out for days. So
Oh.
again, when somebody that, like, let's say somebody at church says, oh, my sister just got diagnosed with cancer, can you pray for her, or whatever, and I'd be like, look, let me tell you something. Or they would bring up the hair thing. And again, it's just something that's so minimal that you wouldn't really think about too much until he would say, listen. And he was right. I mean, that doctor was right. And it was very hard. My brother was right. And so it's a learning experience, something that you always, the knowledge that you have that you can help share with others that someday will go through it. I
I
think is
love
a
that.
big thing that you carry with you.
Awesome. Well, I know that people are going to get a lot out of this, and I really appreciate you coming on and sharing your experiences. And, those caregivers out there, we're all thinking of you, we're all praying for you, and please take care of yourself,
Take
right?
care of yourselves. That's right. That's right. There
All
is
right.
days you got to put you first, and it's okay.
Exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I really
Thank you,
appreciate it.
Melissa.
It was wonderful chatting with you, and have a great rest of your day.
You too. You
All
too.
right. Bye bye.
Bye bye now.